Elvis Presley, forever immortalized as the king of rock and roll, endured a heartbreak in his life that lingered far longer than most fans could imagine. At the height of his fame, when his face graced magazines around the globe and his music electrified a generation, he found himself captivated by a Hollywood actress of extraordinary beauty. Elvis was convinced she was the one, the woman he wanted to spend his life with, the person he envisioned marrying. Yet despite his unwavering devotion and the irresistible pull of his celebrity, she ultimately refused his proposal. Decades later, at the age of 92, she disclosed the reasons behind her decision, and the explanation stunned those who had long speculated. Her refusal was never about rejecting Elvis as a superstar or resisting the seductive glow of fame. Instead, her heart already belonged to another, a secret love that Elvis could never rival. The magnitude of this rejection affected him deeply, leaving an indelible mark on his emotional life. Some historians and biographers note that it may have influenced the woman he later married, who shared a striking resemblance to the actress he had once adored, as though Elvis, in some subconscious way, sought to recapture the image of the woman who had slipped through his fingers. This is the untold story of Debra Paget, the Hollywood starlet whose choices shaped not only her own destiny, but left an enduring imprint on the personal life of one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century. Deborah Lee Griffin, born in 1933, was seemingly destined for the limelight from her earliest days. Her mother, a former actress, harbored ambitious visions for her daughter, determined that Deborah would succeed in the demanding world of Hollywood. From the start, her life was far from ordinary. Auditions, acting lessons, and exposure to the insistent demands of the entertainment industry defined her childhood, leaving little room for carefree play or typical adolescent experiences. By the age of 14, her mother's relentless guidance had propelled her into the professional sphere, culminating in a contract with 20th Century Fox. For a teenager, this was an extraordinary accomplishment, yet it also plunged her into a fiercely competitive world where seasoned studio executives, directors, and veteran actors judged her every move. In Hollywood, a single performance could dictate the trajectory of a career, and Deborah was navigating these pressures at an age when most children were just beginning high school. Her debut in a significant film role came in 1948 with Cry of the City. At just 14, Deborah faced the challenge of performing opposite adult actors in a narrative rich with emotional and dramatic complexity. Among the most talked about moments of this early performance was her first on-screen kiss, shared with a much older co-star, a scene that, by today's standards, would raise eyebrows and provoke controversy. At the time, however, it exemplified the often unspoken expectations placed upon young actresses, who were required to bridge the gap between childlike innocence and adult narrative demands. Despite her youth, Deborah navigated these challenges with an unexpected professionalism, hinting at the promise of a luminous career ahead. The experience instilled in her a resilience that would serve as a foundation for both her artistic achievements and her ability to endure the pressures of Hollywood stardom. From her first exposure to the intensity of film production, Deborah learned the delicate balance between ambition and discipline, lessons that would accompany her throughout her life. The 1950s marked a period of rising prominence for Deborah as Hollywood began to recognize her unique appeal. Her striking appearance, which studios quickly labeled exotic, opened doors to roles that might have otherwise remained closed. But these opportunities came with their own challenges. Her distinctive looks often resulted in casting that emphasized difference, requiring her to portray characters of varied ethnic backgrounds regardless of historical or cultural authenticity. One early, highly visible role came in 1950 with the Western Broken Arrow, where she played a young Native American woman alongside James Stewart, who was 42 at the time. At 16, the age disparity between her and her co-star drew attention and criticism, highlighting Hollywood's willingness to place very young actresses in narratives with romantic undertones. Preparing for such roles required physically uncomfortable transformations. Deborah darkened her skin and wore brown contact lenses that impaired her vision, demonstrating both her professionalism and the extreme lengths young performers endured to meet studio expectations. These early challenges forged a skill set and discipline that would become hallmarks of her career, proving that she could deliver compelling performances even under circumstances many would find daunting. By 1956, Debra's career reached a pivotal moment with two films that would secure her status in Hollywood. First, she appeared in Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, an epic production in which she held her own amidst an enormous ensemble cast, demonstrating a command of the screen that went beyond mere beauty. That same year, she starred in Love Me Tender opposite Elvis Presley, bringing her into direct contact with one of the most powerful cultural icons of the era. The film not only showcased her talent to a vast audience, but also introduced her to a new generation of fans and placed her at the heart of Hollywood's celebrity culture. Both films were successful commercially and critically, solidifying her reputation as a versatile actress capable of performing in epic historical dramas, as well as contemporary popular entertainment. Debra's trajectory during the 1950s therefore illustrated the duality of opportunity and scrutiny. Immense potential paired with relentless industry pressures, glamour interwoven with exploitation. She became a figure emblematic of Hollywood's complex dynamics, admired for her talent and beauty, yet constantly shaped by the system that both elevated and constrained her. Despite these accomplishments, life behind the camera was not glamorous. Debra faced personal struggles that gradually eroded her enthusiasm for acting. Many roles offered little depth, often confining her to the archetype of the damsel in distress. While audiences admired her presence and striking looks, she yearned for characters that could challenge her intellect and emotions. The repeated typecasting, coupled with the objectification inherent in her public image, left her frustrated. She later recalled the unease she felt discovering that teenagers considered her a pin-up figure. The realization that her carefully cultivated image had become a symbol consumed primarily as fantasy was deeply unsettling. Eventually, she distanced herself from acting, embarking on a spiritual journey that culminated in her becoming a devout Christian. She shared her faith as a host on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, connecting with viewers in ways that went beyond fame and spectacle. This shift from Hollywood starlet to spiritual guide reflected a personal evolution rooted in resilience, self-discovery, and the pursuit of authenticity. One of the most closely scrutinized and sensational chapters of Debra's life was her relationship with Howard Hughes, the famously wealthy and eccentric industrialist and film producer. Hughes's fascination with Debra reportedly extended beyond casual patronage. He showered her with lavish gifts, creating an aura of glamour and allure. Yet these indulgences carried implicit expectations. His influence extended into her professional life, impacting casting decisions, publicity, and production priorities. For a teenage Debra navigating fame, Hughes represented both opportunity and constraint. The intersection of her professional advancement with personal entanglement became particularly consequential when she was faced with Elvis Presley's marriage proposal. Reports suggest that her parents' objections and her involvement with Hughes were central factors in her decision to decline Presley, illustrating the complex interplay of youthful desire, parental authority, and career strategy. Hughes's presence simultaneously limited her romantic freedom while offering protection and advantage, highlighting the intricate web of power, celebrity, and personal sacrifice in Hollywood during this era. Debra's early career was shaped not only by external pressures, but also by the calculated design of her public image. Studios emphasized a duality of innocence and sensuality that would today raise ethical questions. From her earliest roles, she was frequently cast as an object of attraction for older men, as seen in Broken Arrow, where her youthful beauty created a tension between her innocence and the adult desires of both on-screen partners and audience expectations. Although she aspired to complex roles akin to those of Marilyn Monroe, Debra was repeatedly confined to the archetype of the passive, decorative figure. The professional commodification of her youth and appeal inevitably influenced her private life, inviting public speculation and fascination. Her personal relationships mirrored the turbulence of her career. A brief marriage to singer David Street in 1958 lasted 3 months, followed by a 22-day union with director Bud Bodesher in 1960, and finally a longer marriage to Lincoln, a descendant of Confucius, with whom she had a son before divorcing in 1980. These short-lived marriages reflected the search for stability amidst the controlled and exploitative environment of her professional life, a narrative common among child stars who struggled to reconcile personal desire with public expectations. In Hollywood's studio system, relationships often served strategic purposes as much as romantic ones. Connections to influential figures could secure career advancement, publicity, or protection. Debra's association with Hughes exemplified this duality. While genuine feelings may have been involved, her ties to the billionaire also conferred professional leverage. Similarly, her marriages, particularly to Boudicher, might have been motivated partly by career considerations, whereas her final marriage to Lincoln symbolized a decisive break from Hollywood, a transition to private life and faith. Navigating love, security, career, and autonomy was a delicate balancing act for Debra, whose choices reflected both necessity and agency. Her decision to refuse Elvis Presley's proposal was therefore not a simple romantic rejection, but a moment of high-stakes significance, generating decades of gossip, speculation, and fascination. The story captured public imagination not only because of Presley's fame, but also because of the unconventional motivations and unexpected outcomes entwined in her choice. By 1956, Elvis was more than just a rising star. He had become a cultural phenomenon. His attraction to Debra, culminating in a marriage proposal, reflected a serious and heartfelt interest rather than a casual infatuation with another Hollywood actress. He pursued her with traditional courtship rituals, visiting her parents' home, which only made her refusal more striking. This was not simply a matter of youthful flirtation. It represented a genuine, considered decision to reject one of the most powerful and adored figures in American culture. Hollywood gossip speculated endlessly about her reasons, with the parental objection explanation appearing almost quaint against the backdrop of rock and roll rebellion. In truth, her simultaneous involvement with the reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes offered a more comprehensive explanation. In choosing Hughes over Presley, she made a deliberate, if controversial, decision that juxtaposed old-world power, wealth, and influence against the explosive fame and heartthrob appeal of Presley. Her choice reframed the narrative entirely, positioning her as a woman of strategy, not merely passive sentiment. Adding a compelling and uncanny layer to this story is the remarkable resemblance between Debra Paget and Priscilla Beaulieu, the young woman Elvis would later meet in Germany and ultimately marry. Both shared sculpted dark eyebrows, pale skin contrasted with jet black hair, delicate facial features, and a distinct, exotic aura. Debra herself noted the similarity, remarking that they could have been twins. This resemblance suggests that Elvis, heartbroken by his inability to win Paget's affection, may have sought out and shaped a woman who echoed the qualities of the actress he had once loved. The narrative became almost mythic in the media, with fan magazines and gossip columns portraying a dramatic soap opera-level story, a love denied by circumstance, only to be replaced by a living echo of the original object of desire. This intertwining of personal tragedy, romantic intrigue, and public fascination ensured that Debra Paget's place in Hollywood history was secure, not only as a star in her own right, but also as a pivotal what-if in the saga of Elvis Presley's personal life. She became a ghostly presence in the story of a man whose fame was unmatched, yet whose heart had known profound longing and loss. The trajectory of Debra's life offers insight into the complexities of Hollywood stardom and the pressures placed upon young women in the entertainment industry. Her experiences demonstrate how early exposure to adult expectations, industry exploitation, and the commodification of youth and beauty can shape personal choices and emotional trajectories. The pressures of studio contracts, typecasting, and carefully managed public images intersected with personal and romantic decisions, creating an environment in which professional ambition, parental guidance, and strategic alliances often outweighed personal desire. Yet Debra navigated these challenges with remarkable resilience, ultimately finding a path to personal fulfillment through faith, family, and agency over her own narrative. Her story underscores the ways in which fame can be both empowering and constraining, a duality reflected in the choices she made throughout her life. Debra Paget's refusal of Elvis Presley and her simultaneous involvement with Howard Hughes encapsulate a defining moment of both personal and cultural significance. It was an intersection of youthful ambition, strategic decision-making, and romantic complexity, set against the backdrop of one of the most extraordinary eras in Hollywood history. Her ability to negotiate this intricate web of professional opportunity, romantic entanglement, and public scrutiny reflects a sophistication and agency that were exceptional for someone so young. In doing so, she not only shaped her own destiny, but also left an enduring mark on the legend of Elvis Presley, influencing the narrative of his romantic life and reinforcing the notion that even the most iconic figures are subject to human desire, heartbreak, and the unforeseen consequences of love and loss. Ultimately, Debra Paget's story is one of talent, resilience, and strategic navigation of the complex worlds of Hollywood and fame. From her early beginnings as a child star, guided by a determined mother, to her peak in the 1950s as a recognized and celebrated actress, she faced challenges that would have overwhelmed many. She balanced extraordinary professional demands with intense personal scrutiny, navigated relationships that were both romantic and strategic, and eventually carved out a life of spiritual and personal fulfillment beyond the silver screen. Her decision to reject Elvis Presley, whether motivated by parental guidance, romantic involvement with Howard Hughes, or strategic foresight, became a defining episode in Hollywood lore, influencing both her legacy and that of the king of rock and roll. Through her story, we gain a nuanced understanding of the pressures, compromises, and triumphs that shaped the lives of women in Hollywood during its golden age, as well as the enduring human drama behind the glamour and glitter of fame.